The planet Cronus. Beset on all sides by the tides of war, this once quiet colony became a savage battlefield. 7 armies clashed on this one world, each refusing to back down. Each convinced it was in the right. From beneath the sands of Cronus' central desert came the Necrons, ancient machines bent on eradicating all life. But another evil already had its eyes on the planet. From the depths of the warp, the demonic forces of chaos arrived to enforce their claim. To oppose these fearsome powers, the planet's rulers in the Tau Empire sent their elite soldiers and sophisticated battlesuits into the fray. From the mighty Imperium of Man came the Imperial Guard, there to secure Cronus for the glory of the God Emperor. Like a green tide, the Orc Horde descended on Cronus, caring little for others' claims and sowing destruction in its wake. The Eldar, ancient enemies of the Necrons, emerged from their webway to pursue their own agenda on Cronus. And last came the Space Marines, finest and most uncompromising of the Imperium soldiers. Seeing a world beset by aliens and heretics, they undertook a great purge. A dark crusade had begun. It could only end with the total victory of one of these factions and the total defeat of all others. The Imperial Guard arrived on Cronus in pursuit of the Eldar Farseer Taldir. General Lucas Alexander found more than his prey there, however. He found his destiny. General Alexander claimed the abandoned city of Ironworks Bay as a base of operations and found there the massive Hellstorm cannon of an Imperator war titan. Tech priests had brought this fearsome relic to Cronus millennia ago, soon after it was cut from a heretical war machine during the Horus Heresy. When the general reported his discovery, the Imperial Guard's High Command issued him new orders. He would secure the Titan's gun, along with any other relics of the Tech Priests, and would then return Cronus to the Imperium of Man, ordering him to drive out the aliens and heretics besetting this world. Segmentum Command named Alexander Governor Militant and created the 1st Cronus Regiment from his ground forces. The new governor quickly renamed the city itself Victory Bay, making it his new planetary capital, while his men adopted the sobriquet of Liberators for their regiment. When the Blood Raven Space Marines began the purge of Cronus, the Governor Militant refused to retreat. His orders were clear. Regardless of the demands of the Space Marines, the Guard would fight the Blood Ravens along with all the other invaders. The Liberators' 3rd Company provided the bulk of Governor Militant Alexander's troops during the final assault on the Word-Bearer's Warp Gate. This choice was astute, as 3rd Company had been drawn from the Cadian 15th Regiment and were veterans of several hard battles against Chaos forces on their home world. The men of 3rd Company did their duty admirably, despite having to fight across warp-blasted terrain and face countless twisted horrors. In the wake of the bloody battle, the company came to be known as the Demon Killers. But scores of men left their lives on that corrupted soil, and many more were maimed and wounded. The toll of the battle was higher still among the sanctioned psychers supporting the troops. The presence of so much unbridled warp energy drove many to madness or to lose control over their strange abilities. The regimental commissariat oversaw the execution of those lost to the enemy. The terrifying battle through the underground labyrinth of the Necron catacombs cost the Liberators dearly. The implacable foe claimed scores upon scores of lives, notably wiping out 4th Company's 2nd and 5th platoons. But when the smoke cleared from the great detonation which collapsed the catacombs, a great cheer arose from the survivors. In several places, the ancient structures of the Necron tomb world emerged from the desert. Father Martel, confessor to the governor and the de facto archdeacon of Cronus, ultimately condemned these as heretical blights which continued to corrupt all those who spent time near them. Governor Militant Alexander took his words to heart and had his men use further bombs to reduce all ruins to rubble or bury them under tons of sand. Certainly one of the most hard-fought. The Imperial victory over the Tau forces in Asharis was definitely the most celebrated of the Liberation campaign. In the death of the ethereal Shiores and the retreat of his forces, Governor Militant Alexander saw the completion of his dream of once and for all stripping Cronus from the Tau Empire. A military parade through the streets of Asharis marked the victory, along with repeated scenes of sanctioned destruction of the signs of alien occupation. The regimental commissariat also established offices in Asharis and other liberated cities where citizens could provide information on those who had aided the alien occupiers. The trials of accused collaborators were rapid and deadly, the Emperor's justice having no mercy for traitors to the human race. Despite the legions of aliens he threw against the Liberators, Warlord Gorguts could not stand against the might of the Imperial Guard. The Orc chieftain's escape would later put a blemish on the victory in the Green Coast. But in the immediate aftermath, most assumed he had died in the cataclysmic explosion that destroyed his encampment. Governor Militant Alexander entrusted the job of cleaning up the now divided Orcs to Captain Gregor Vash's 2nd Company. Vash broke his forces up into individual hunter squads, offering rewards and glory to those units that confirmed the most kills. The Ogrins under his command took this contest to heart and collected massive piles of orcish skulls for themselves. The company commissar eventually forbade this practice as incompatible with the Imperial creed. He spent some weeks in the Medicae Temple after informing the Ogrin warriors of his decision. No amount of trickery or deceit could forestall the Emperor's justice when the Liberators finally tracked Farseer Taldir to the frozen train of Tyria. With the Witch's Web Gate sealed and her forces crushed, Governor Militant Alexander soon held the Xenofarseer in his hands. Drugged and imprisoned, she would ultimately be handed over to the Inquisition. Taldir's capture meant Governor Alexander's original mission was at an end. However, in a rousing speech before the troops in Tyria and broadcast across the planet, Alexander reminded his soldiers of their duty to return Cronus to Imperial control. Father Martel, the governor's own confessor, blessed this mandate in the name of the immortal God Emperor, and the regimental commissars called it the duty of all loyal guardsmen to push on to total victory. The clash between Governor Militant Alexander and the Bloodraven Captain Thule could only end in blood. Both had explicit orders, and both were convinced they acted with the Emperor's blessing. Only when the Liberators had driven into North Vandia and leveled the Space Marines' Castellum Incorruptus did the Blood Ravens cease their purge of the planet and withdraw. Although orbital salvos from the Blood Raven's battle barge leveled much of the remains of the base, Governor Alexander directed his men to conduct a careful search for any records the Space Marines might have left behind. Their search was not in vain, and Alexander uncovered records linking the chapter to past visits to the planet, as well as disturbing contradictions in the chapter's history. It seems likely that these discoveries led directly to the Inquisition's probe of the chapter soon thereafter. With the last alien bastion broken, Governor Militant Alexander stood as the uncontested ruler of Cronus, and a hero to his men. Even faced with the opposition of the Blood Ravens, the governor carried out his orders and received his rewards. Indeed, Segmentum Command ordered the Liberators to remain on Cronus during a pacification period, and then to ship out to the next conflict zone. Governor Alexander would remain behind to rule in the God Emperor's name. Large numbers of tech priests arrived on Cronus to oversee a massive campaign of public works, bringing with them the huge resources needed. In return, they gained permission to resume study of the Hellstorm cannon in Victory Bay, hoping to return it to the Emperor's service. As for the Liberators, Governor Alexander promoted Captain Vash to Colonel and placed him in command. With the regiment still loyal to him, a planet at his command, and the tech priests of Mars in his debt, Lucas Alexander had begun his rise as a power to be reckoned with in this sector of the galaxy.